Alright, hello everyone and welcome to the pseudocode solution for task 1 of the PRM for O-Levels Computer Science May-June 2022 variant 2.2. This is a follow video from the last one in which we discussed what the task actually requires of us, what the tasks require of us, what the PRM actually is, and how we are supposed to understand the question and compare it to the concept we have in mind, right? So if you haven't watched that video, I highly suggest you go and watch that first, because we are going to be building off of the concepts and intuitions we gained in that video, right? So now let's jump right into the code and into programming the solution for task 1 of this PRM. So just to recap what task 1 actually required of us, here is what we had to do in task 1. So we had to display the options and prices and the attractions for 1-day tickets, display them for 2-day tickets, and show all the days available. So if we take a look at the way we decided it was going to be structured, was that it would be all the block for 1 day, then the entire block for 2 days, and then the extra attractions, and also the number of days available, right? So everything from here to here, this is all for task 1. So this is what we're going to be focusing on in this video. So everything within here, so these are what we're going to be building in this video. So to get into that, what we need to do is initialize a bunch of, or rather declare a bunch of identifiers and data structures, essentially. And a lot of these might not make sense right now. Maybe all of them don't make sense where they're being used. But of course, like, that'll make sense once we actually get into the code. But just for the sake of like us having the names in mind, let's go through them. So we have a display count, which is a variable, and the variable's data type is an integer. So there's some variable called display count, which probably because of the name, you can probably deduce that this is going to be some sort of a counter used within loops, right? So and maybe it's a loop to display something because it says display count, right? So this is a variable of data type integer. Then we have an array of 5 indexes, so from index 1 to 5, with the identifier or the name of ticket types, and this is of string. So again, if you tie this back to what we did in the last video, so this is going to be the array which contains all the names of the tickets, right? It contains the types of whatever ticket is being stored. So one adult, one child, one senior, family, group, etc. Well, not etc. Those are the only ones. Those are the names that are going to be stored in this array. Right. Then we also have ticket prices 1 day, an array of similar indexes, which is of integer. This is a mistake. This should be real. So this is real and this is real. So we have these two. My bad. Like just ignore that mistake. These two are arrays declared with the indexes 1 through to 5. And again, the indexes, each of the corresponding indexes, so let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, each index in each of the array would point towards the same class of object, right? So basically, if index 1 means 1 adult, the ticket of 1 adult, so index price is 2 days, the first index of ticket price is 2 days would contain the price of the adult ticket for 2 days, right? And similarly, ticket price 1 day, index 1 would contain the price for 1 adult for 1 day, right? So that is how you declare that. Actually, I'm gonna undo that. I'm gonna leave that and remove these. Okay. All right. So there's that, and then yeah. So these are real because we had the 0.5 value like as we discussed in the last video. We will need a real quantity. So then we have extra attraction, an array of index 1 through to 3 of type string. So this the fact that this is stored as a string gives us the idea that it's going to store the names. And then again, we have extra attraction prices, similar indexes of real. And what this is going to do is that it's going to store the prices. It's going to store the price of each attraction, right? Extra attraction. And then we also have the array days with indexes 1 through 7. of type string, and this probably gives us an idea that this would contain the fact that it's 1 through 7, meaning it has 7 elements, probably gives us an idea that this will contain the days of the week. And since it's a string, that lines up perfectly with it storing stuff like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. Right? So there we have that. Oh, all right. So then what we have to do is we have to output all of the data, right? So we are outputting everything that we are supposed to output. So we have output 1 day tickets. Okay, so this is essentially just code to make the outcome look nicer. So for example, let me show you what this would look like. Okay, so here we have what's called the emulator. So this is what is going to appear. This is going to be the finished code. So when we have finished our algorithm, this is what the outcome should be, right? So for task 1, so let's enter 1 for task 1. This is what our output should look like. So everything from here through to here, here to here, this is our output for task 1. This is just the carry forward sort of input for task 2. So this takes us into task 2. We don't need to worry about that right now. We'll do that in the next video. Today we're only worried about this. So this is the output that we have to display for task 1. So this is what we are expected to deliver. So now let's have a look at how we're going to do that. So this part, the 1 day tickets and then the hyphens, that essentially is just the for the lineup in the actual emulator. So that is how it's going to show when we are emulating it, when we are designing it. What's wrong with the emulator here? 1 second. There we go. Yep. So that's what's going to show. So if you see everything from here to here, this is the outcome of these 2 lines of code, right? So then we have the for loop. Now the for loop is run based on the display count. So like we said, we were able to infer that, okay, so display count is going to be some sort of a counter, and indeed it is. It is running every single for loop that we have. So it's going to run all of those. It's going to be the counter that runs all of the for loops, right? So within the for loop, so this is the first for loop. There's the second, there's a third, and then there's a fourth. And if you notice that every one of these for loops is for a specific bunch of outputs, right? So this bunch is of ticket types, and then the ticket price is 1 day. And then the second one has ticket types and ticket prices 2 days. So this sort of gives us an idea that, okay, so this bunch is going to be all the data. So within this loop, when this loop is finished, is going to show us all the data for ticket for 1 day tickets, right? And when this loop is finished, it's going to show us all the data for 2 day tickets, just like we have here. So here, all of this is going to be the output, or rather this is going to be the output of the first loop. This is going to be the output of the second loop. This is the third loop, and so forth and so on, right? So that is how that is going to work. So now if we take a look into what is actually happening in the for loop, what's going on is that we have one output, and that output has a lot of different values concatenated. Concatenated basically means added onto the end of a string, right? So if you have one string and you concatenate it, so let's say I have this string Zafar, and then I have this string Hamza. If I concatenate these 2 strings, so with the symbol and, what that basically becomes is, and let's assume there's no space here. So there's no space at the end of R, and there's no space at the beginning of H. So what that would basically become is for Hamza. Basically what it does is that it adds the 2 strings after one another. Now you probably already knew that. This is just a recap in case you didn't. So that is what concatenation does. So every time we see this symbol, this AND symbol, known as the ampersand, every time we see the ampersand, it is going to concatenate. It basically tells us that we are concatenating 2 different strings, right? So what is the output of each of this display for each iteration of this loop, right? So we have So we're outputting string of display count. So display count again. So display count is going to be the counter that runs the loops, right? So it's going to have an index from 1 to 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 obviously. So within every time we run the loops, it's going to increment in the value. So for the first loop, the display count value will be 1. For the second one, it will be 2. For the third, it will be 3, 4 and 5 and etc. So and so forth and so on. So this is how our loop is going to run, right? Well, this is how the values of display count are going to vary. So let's say that we have let's say we're running this first time. So for the first loop, string of display count will just output 1 at the end of the statement, right? So this statement is just going to give us 1 as a string. It's going to give us the number 1, but it's going to be converted as a string because of str. So str is a function that takes a string and returns an integer. So because of that, we are now getting the output of 1 as a string, and then we're concatenating that to the dot. And the reason we're doing this is just for vanity. You don't have to do this in the exam. This is just for displaying purposes. So basically, the dot space is what gives us this, right? So these values are the values of display count. So this value, this value, this value, this and this. This is all of display count, and then that is being concatenated with the dot space, right? So that is just there to give us a bit of an aesthetic, really. It's only for visual purposes. So there's that. Then we are accessing ticket types and with the index of display count. So basically what that tells us is that the array we have of ticket types, which contains the 5 different values. So it contains 5 different strings. So the first index would be an adult, second would be child, third would be the senior, fourth would be family, fifth would be group. So this array contains strings with the names of those tickets, right? So let's say that we are in the first loop, the first iteration of the loop. So display count equals 1. So what this is going to do is that it's going to access the first index of ticket types, and so that is going to be 1 adult. The first index contains 1 adult, right? So it's going to concatenate that at the end of dot space, and that's what it does. So dot space, and then it has concatenated 1 adult. And then we are just doing the colon and the $sign. Again, this is just for vanity. The colon space dollar, that part comes because of this. So this part you see on here, that comes because we added that symbol. So we have that, and then we just have okay, so we are converting to string. So whenever you see this str function, that basically tells us that, okay, so whatever is inside of the function, so this part, all of this part, this is not a string by default. So this is some value that is not a string, that is being converted into a string. So what is the actual value? What are we accessing? So we are accessing the array of ticket prices 1 day, and we are accessing the display count index. So right now, again, display count equals 1 because we are in the first loop. So display count equals 1, and so we are accessing the first index, and that means that ticket prices 1 day would contain the price. I believe it was 15. No, sorry, it was 20. Yeah, so this contains 20.00, and this is the price. Let me just confirm this. Yeah, so this is the price for the cost of 1 day, for the cost of the 1 adult ticket for 1 day. So this entire statement combined, this now gives us the total information. This came from the display count, this came from the ticket types array first index, and this came from the ticket prices 1 day, the first index of that array, right? And then all of this was just added on by us. So the dot space and the colon space dollar, this was just added for vanity, for aesthetic, right? So this is going to do the same thing again and again for all 5 values of display count. And as you can imagine, it's going to go through the indexes every time. So the ticket types index increases, and the ticket prices index increases. And so every single time it goes through the next element of the array, right? So one adult, 1 child, 1 senior, etc. And then at the same time it's going through this array. So it's going to output the corresponding prices. So it's going to do the same thing for this. So 1 adult, 20, 1 child, 12. And if you note that these were all the prices corresponding to the 1 day tickets, right? So right here, all of these are the prices for 1 day. So this is the part of the code that codes for the first bunch of data. All right. So in a similar manner, we are going to display all the data for for all the different types of for all the different arrays, right? For all the different types of data that there are to output. So the one day tickets, the 2 day tickets, the extra attractions, and the available days. So we've just done the one for 1 day tickets, and in a similar manner, we are going to do them for 2 day tickets. Now, the only thing that's going to change in the for loop, again, because we're gonna have the same output, we're gonna have the same number sequence, so it's gonna be 1 2 3 4 5, right? So this part stays the same. Coincidentally, this part also stays the same because this just tells us what the name of the ticket is, right? And the ticket name is still the same, whether you're purchasing the 1 day ticket or the 2 day tickets, the name still remains the same. So this part stays the same. This is the only thing that changes. Here we were accessing the array ticket prices 1 day. Here we are accessing the array ticket prices 2 days. This is the only thing that's going to change. Everything apart from that stays the same. And so the same structure, the same for loop. Display count has these values through 1 to 5, and then and so like this we have just displayed the 1 day tickets and the 2 day tickets. Here we're going to do a similar thing to output all the extra attractions. So we give it a title and then the header. Again, this isn't really necessary. This is just for vanity. You won't get like your marks deducted if you don't add this. So then we have a loop. The difference this time is that the index values of or rather the iteration values of display count is from 1 to 3. So it's going to be 1, 2, and 3, right? So the first index is 1. And this time what it does is that it accesses so again it will output the number, so it will be like 1 2 3 for every turn, right? So display count dot display, this is meant to be a dot. It is going to display all the numbers, right? And then what it's going to do is it's going to display the extra attraction display count. So for the first time this is going to be 1, so that's going to be lion feeding, I believe, or penguin feeding, one of the two. It's going to be lion feeding. So the first one is going to show up like this. It's going to show up like lion feeding, and then we have the colon and then the dollar sign added with this. So colon dollar sign, and then we have the string of the extra attraction prices. So in a similar manner as we did last time, we are taking this integer value, this real value for the price of the attraction at the same index. So the same index corresponds to the same item, and then we are converting that into a string and we are concatenating that onto this. So let's just say that was 2.00 or 2.5, whichever one it was 2.5. So 2.50, and then this is going to be our output. And in a similar manner, we're going to do this for all 3 values of display count. And so in that way, we have iterated through every single attraction that is present in our database. Like in our array. And so finally, we do the exact same thing for the available number of days. And so we give the header. Let me just get rid of that. So we give the header as usual. And then we run the loop again. This time we're only, it is far simpler. And all we have to do is output the number that we're currently on. So 1, 2, 3, just as before. And this time what we're doing is that we are concatenating simply the index from the days array. And so the days array contains all the days of the week, right? So 1 is Monday, 2 is Tuesday, etc. As it was initialized earlier, and that would then give us 1 Monday, 2 Tuesday, 3 Thursday, and so forth and so on, right? So it will be 1 Monday, 2 Tuesday, and etc. all the way until we have everything. So if we take a look back here, so this is going to be the output of this. So all of this is going to show us that. Let me just zoom out a bit so you can see it. This should be good. One second, a bit more actually. Yeah, so that is, there we go. So yeah, this part is this entire part is what determines what is output here. So this is the output of the available days, and just like that we have completed the entire solution for task 1. So this is all of the pseudocode required for completing task 1. And in the next video, we will be discussing task 2 and 3. So like I said, we'll be doing them simultaneously because task 3, the code for task 3 is a code that sits in between. It's best implemented as a code that sits between the code for task 2. So we're going to be taking a look at that in the next video.